Hello, I'm David Jackson, and welcome to the Sports Bar. Sports Bar is open for business, and we have plenty to talk about. I'm App State's Associate Athletic Director, David Jackson. Let's get right to it with our regulars, Ashton Slaughter, Chris Warner, Robin Palmer. Everybody, how you doing? I figure we bring everybody together today to talk corruption because there's plenty of that. So FIFA, I mean, you can't get much more corrupt than that. If any of you have any money you'd like to pay me right now to talk about this, maybe that would be a good way to get into it. But yeah, so not if you're a fan of soccer, you're probably not a fan of soccer finances right now.
Well, I think the biggest thing that struck me about the whole FIFA thing is when I found out about the equal pay, sort of like why they reelected Blatt back into presidency, is because every country, no matter how big or small, got equal pay, and that's sort of how they've gotten all the votes, because all of the smaller countries sort of get on there. And even during the last election before this one, he was the only name on the ballot. Like, they didn't even try to change anything, and it's sort of like a dictatorship over there, and it's just corruption in a nutshell.
I think what was most concerning for me is the fact when you talk about Ireland and what's coming out about that, about the handball, and basically FIFA paid Ireland to not protest it, and they missed the World Cup as a result of that. And so when you're influencing games, I think all credibility as far as FIFA goes, this even goes without saying, is that it's gone. You're going to have sweeping changes. 14 people getting pulled out of positions is not enough, and the Blatter resignation is not enough. It's going to take a lot to repair the image for FIFA, but him being out of there is a good thing. I just don't think him getting elected and then going, oh, I'm going to resign now, was the best thing for FIFA either. Somebody needed to come in and say, you're not even allowed to get elected, because I think it just kills him.
Well, that's the big issue with this now, too, is that you're taking away the integrity of a game that, is one of the most popular in the entire world. I mean, when you think about a game that you have teams from all over the world, all different countries, bringing them together, that's a huge thing. And now that you've taken the integrity out of it, little countries, little clubs, no matter what, are saying, well, what if this game was thrown on purpose? What if the refs were doing something? What if they were being paid off? What if this? What if that? And I mean, that takes away all the fun out of a game. If you know that, the chance of you winning is now 20% instead of 50% or whatever, you don't care as much because, I mean, it's not fun anymore, and it's not fun to watch. It's not fun to play, and I'm sure they don't really want to be in the spotlight for being the team that won or lost because of someone throwing money at somebody else.
And the goofy thing about this for me is that you have this corruption, you have the level of, handshake agreements, back alley agreements, and all of this stuff basically, yet you can make the argument that in a sense it was beneficial because revenues are up, the world reach of FIFA is up, ratings are up, yet it was all dirty. I mean, where does the line get drawn?
Yeah,
Because without the dirty, you don't have soccer.
I mean, their revenue may be up, but have you seen what happened to Brazil after, the World Cup was done? The giant stadium where, many lives and a lot of money went into this, it's a parking lot for buses now.
Turner Field's about to get torn down. I mean, so Olympic venues don't last.
But even
or
still,
venues of that kind.
Even still, they just pump all this money out there, and then, I mean, you have that little bit of revenue at that time, but after that, it's just, there's this giant space there that's not being used. What's the point?
It's a bubble that's bound to burst is kind of what it seems
right,
like.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and that's why the U.S., I think, was successful in their World Cup hosting years ago because they used existing venues.
Yep.
So you didn't have a chance to launder money in the same way. I guess you could almost look at Blatter's resignation as like a flop. I mean, wouldn't that be like the soccer term for that?
Yeah. All around. I mean, just all around failure on everybody's end in this. I think we're going to see. I think we're only seeing the beginning. I mean, the names are going to start coming out. I know. Gosh, I can't think of the name, but the guy who was helping the investigation from the start has come out and said that he's planning on, as this goes on, I mean, he led him to those guys, but those are the beginning fall guys. And names are going to start coming out, and these backdoor deals, all this stuff that seems just like it's out of a movie. I mean, you're going to hear more and more of that. And it's kind of sad because by the end of all this, I think we're all just going to be so ready to move on from it that we're going to be desensitized to stuff like all this money changing hands and stuff. And it affects a lot as far as, especially when you're talking about World Cup bids. Look at Qatar right now. I mean, you want to talk about problems? They're having hundreds, thousands of people die putting this together. And if it wasn't so close to, I mean, they're talking about potentially taking that away. And you've already lost how many people as a result of all these deals? And when you're up at the top making all this money, it's not affecting you. It's affecting the people there. I just think there's a lot of people who stand to be hurt by all this, and it's just sad to see.
Well, definitely. And I mean, going back to what you said about, FIFA, the popularity of it is up and things like that. I mean, I think of it almost as like a reality TV show. I mean, it's like watching Jersey Shore and going, well, at least I'm not that guy. At least I'm not, doing that. At least I'm not in trouble for doing that. And we love to watch this. I mean, it's on TV. Think about how many hours of television has already gone
Oh, the Women's
to
World
talking
Cup's
about
going to be
this.
consumed with it.
Yep.
Because
Oh, yeah.
FIFA's name's on, and they're already branding it away from that.
Yep.
You don't hear it as FIFA World Cup as
Yep.
much as it is just World Cup.
Well, I mean,
There we
even
go.
but
Go
even with the
Canada.
Women's World Cup, there's more corruption there. Like with Blatter, even still, like the only few comments that he's made about Women's World Cup is just like maybe more people will watch it if they wear tighter shorts or things like that.
Oh, that's-
And also just the fact that like they're making them play all on turf. Have you ever tried slide tackling on turf? It's not fun, or getting tackled in general. They've posted pictures of like their legs after practices and games, and it's tragic. And you would never see that with men's soccer. So that's another like sort of sexist corruption. It's not even monetary. It's just they don't care.
This is a reality show.
Yeah.
I mean, it's actually
Jersey
more like
Shore
Dallas.
FIFA.
If you just had somebody in a cowboy hat, it'd be perfect. All right, so going from football and tackling to football and tackling, the only thing flatter than our product here is the footballs that Tom Brady apparently throws with. So Deflategate's not going anywhere.
I guess I'll open up on this one. Being a Bills fan, I find it interesting. I think that the fallout, I think as it gets closer to the decision coming down in this appeal, I personally think that Brady will see maybe a 2-game suspension as the fallout of all this. I think when Kraft came out and agreed to accept the penalties, you want to talk about handshake agreement, something probably happened there. If Brady comes clean and has no game suspended, I wouldn't even be that surprised. But I think as a whole, when you talk about the Patriots, you're going to remember Spygate and then this. And it's just another blemish on a track record of a team that, while maybe they're not, full on, I mean, it is cheating, but it's just small little advantages here and there. And I'm sure that they're not the only team that's doing it, but to see them take the fall yet again, and this is the model franchise for the NFL, so it's a lot bigger than if you found that the Cleveland Browns were doing this or my Buffalo Bills or somebody, it's that much more
They
magnified.
actually have been doing it for years.
Yeah,
now.
exactly. Nobody cared. Nobody
Yeah.
cared in
It's
the
not
loss.
helping.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but all right. So a couple of weeks ago, there were 2 Major League Baseball players that were convicted, basically, of altering the ball. It's the same thing, right? So my take on this is that while Tom Brady if he is indeed at the center of the cheating aspect of this, and he has gone through the painstaking ways to cover it up, then yes, he cheated. Now, integrity of the game, that all being what it is it worth the percentage of the season that he would miss? Roughly 20% of an NFL season. You break it down for the 2 Major League Baseball suspensions of 8 games apiece, you're talking less than 10%.
Yep.
Where's the balance there? I mean, you're basically doing the same exact thing. I think, like you said, if this was not the New England Patriots, this would not be as big of a deal.
Yeah.
But it is, and the common public way we do things is to bring all of that stuff right back into the center of the conversation again.
Yep.
They're dirty. They've done it before. They'll do it again. And here is a prime example with America's poster child quarterback.
Not only is it New England doing what New England does, but it was for the biggest game of the season. It's for the title. I mean, everyone watches that, whether you like football or not. I mean, everyone's there, and there's a lot of things that you could question about what happened during that. Like, would this have happened if, the balls were inflated, this, that, the other? And I mean, they won with an interception. Like, that's how close the game was. So there's a lot you can question there. But it's just, The Major League Baseball one, it's a smaller thing because, I mean, there wasn't as much writing on it. But the Patriots, they've been here before. They did it for a huge game. And I think, you know, there should be more than just a few game suspension. However, I don't believe it should be Tom Brady because if you think about it, the refs feel the ball every time they place it down for the center.
Oh, so you're going full on conspiracy theory.
I'm going full conspiracy theory, man. Like, the refs feel the ball. The refs should know if it's deflated or not. If the refs can't tell from, like, squeezing and placing it, is it that big of a difference? Like, did it happen?
Well, Bladder handed him a case of
Yeah.
before it all started, and that's
True.
really how it got going.
I think the hardest thing, and this is the hard thing to distinguish, is if you're a referee, you know what the limit is as far as, but there's a threshold. And so between that threshold, it can be almost overinflated, almost underinflated, but still be within the legal confines, you know? So from just squeezing a ball, I can understand not realizing, oh, this is under pressure. And I think the biggest thing about all of this is not necessarily what it does for a quarterback, because you heard Aaron Rodgers come out and say, well, I actually like the ball a little overinflated. This plays a big role, having a deflated ball plays a big role in games where the weather is terrible and everybody's, you know, the ball's popping out everywhere.
Yeah.
When it's underinflated, you can grip that ball. And the statistic, I think it's, since that rule came into being, which guess who brought that up is Tom Brady himself, went to the
Of course,
league and
that's-
said, hey,
that's the way it works.
we should do this. And it, you know, they pick it up, and then all of a sudden, New England has historically, I mean, statistical anomaly low in fumbling. Ben-Jarvis Green-Ellis, for example, went at least one season, maybe two, without fumbling the football at all.
Yeah.
And then goes to Cincinnati and has 5 in his first season there. And you see the same thing from LeGarrette Blount and things like that. And it just takes little things like that to make your team consistent, because New England's got a good enough quarterback in Brady that if you win the turnover battle, typically you win the game. And so, you know, all we know is that it happened in this game. There's evidence to say that it's gone on in other games, and I would say that it probably has. But, you know, it just takes a bunch of little things to make a team, to separate a team from being 11-5, 12-4, 13-3, and being a team that barely misses the playoffs.
Yeah, well, and it comes back down to the fact that, like you said, it was a big game. It wasn't, you know, it wasn't early on in the season. It wasn't against a team like, you know, maybe the Browns or the Bills or someone who had been struggling a little bit.
Hey now.
And, you know, I'm a diehard Colts fan, so I was a little angry about the game in itself. But, I mean, we played like crap.
Yeah.
There's no way of hiding
Yep.
that. Like, I can't say, oh, well, it was all the ball.
Yep.
We played horribly. And I get that. But at the same time, like, when you're cheating in a game where, A, you're already up by sickening amounts, and B, it's a huge game that, you know, the Super Bowl is riding on, that's where I think the punishment needs to come in on. I think that's why he deserves to have a few more games, is because it wasn't, oh, one ball this one time. It was, you cheated in one of the biggest games, you know, second to the Super Bowl.
All right, so I'm going to throw this out at the three of you like this, assuming that all of you have been in a relationship at some point in time, okay? I'm making this assumption. So the integrity of the game argument is here, that there is a malicious intent to alter a device within the game structure, so that is cheating. That is by rule cheating. The baseball thing, same thing. Scuff the ball, put whatever on the ball, you're cheating. At what point in time have we gotten to the point as a society that just a little bit of cheating is okay? So throw it to the relationship side. At what point do you say a little bit of cheating is okay in your relationship? You'll be fine with your significant other if they just cheat a little bit. And what is that cheat a little bit? Is that, you know, like making out in the parking lot, or is that whatever? What is the sports relationship connotation to this? Because cheating is cheating, and if you cheat, you should be thrown out.
I was gonna say, I was like, there really isn't a, like, you know, if you do this, it's, you know, if you cheat, you cheated, something's wrong, you should be punished,
because I've
you know?
never
Like,
heard that argument in the relationship aspect. I was just a little bit of cheating. Don't worry
Yes,
about it.
exactly.
Yeah, so, I mean, Tom Brady just a little bit cheated. Why are we so quick to forgive him because he's Tom Brady? Because he's married to Giselle? If he cheated on Giselle the same way he cheated on the Colts, I'm thinking that Giselle is probably going to give him more than a 4-game suspension.
Well, and I mean, for me, I guess if you're going to the relationship policy, that's a zero tolerance. Like I call me old school, call it whatever. But relating it back to the Patriots, you're talking about a team that this would be essentially the second time they've cheated. So how much patience, if you're Roger Goodell, can you have? Roger Goodell already during Spygate, they take the films. Roger Goodell says, it's so terrible, I'm going to burn these tapes so no one else can see them. I would say that's your pass. That's your, okay, you made a mistake cheating. We're willing to move on from that. Now, you're right back up only a couple years later. I think it shows arrogance on the part of the Patriots organization. And the NFL kind of knew ahead of time that this was going to happen. And I think the NFL was a little shady on the fact that they tried to almost stage a sting. The protocol, I guess, is most teams, if you hear something like this is going to happen, you reach out and you say, hey, we kind of heard, this is going on.
I'm pretty sure the DEA calls all drug lords too before they go and raid those
yeah,
places.
yeah.
They're coming. So just go
yeah.
ahead. And,
Well, I don't know. I just think that if you're Goodell, the punishment right now, this 4 games, you don't step back. And the reason for that being is that it's not just that it's 4 games, it's the 4 games after the Super Bowl. You're talking about the first opening game. That's the ring ceremony. You take that away, and it's a tough game. They open against Pittsburgh. Those first 4 games are very tough for New England, aside from the game versus Jacksonville. And so this is how you show this team that this isn't going to be allowed in the future, because if you pull back from this and you say that, okay, yeah, it's bad, but you know what, 1, 2 games, nothing, how many other teams are sitting there going, well, shoot, 1 or 2 games
Let's
without a
just
quarterback.
cheat.
Let's just do it. I
Yeah,
mean,
why
shoot, we
not?
can go 14-2. I don't care.
Swipe
13.
right, man. It's
Yeah.
all good. Yeah,
Well,
let's
especially if
go.
you've got a backup quarterback who's playing at the level that your starter is, or just slightly below. If it's not the, oh my gosh, without Tom Brady, we're so far behind. I mean, if you've got 2 guys who are like, they're both pretty good, whatever. I mean, at that point, yeah, spend him a few games. We'll just take the other guy. We're good.
Well, do you think the Bills would care if they had to lose their quarterback? They don't even
No.
know who their quarterback's going to be, so please suspend my
So that's
quarterback.
a
We can figure
mythical
it out.
guy. We're
Yeah.
going to lose guy X, but who
Yeah.
cares? Just
Yeah.
cheat, man. You're not
Exactly.
good enough to be the quarterback
And
in
they're
week
just
2
grabbing
anyway.
guys out of the
so.
stands.
So switching to a more wholesome brand of football. So App State, I'm curious to get you guys' impressions on the season ahead. What's the general thought process? A lot of starters back, a lot of excitement out there.
I'm hoping, my biggest hope for the next 2015-2016 season is we're just going to carry the momentum from the end of our last season. I mean, we started off week 1-5, but then our last 6 games, 6-0. I mean, once we got everything together and we went, we played as a team and we, tweaked everything, it was perfect. Like, we won. And I'm hoping that keeps going over. And I think, that's one of the biggest problems with, getting the support from a lot of people is just, we weren't winning at first and it was iffy. But I'm thinking that it's going to be, if we come out strong next season, we'll carry the momentum.
I'm excited. I think personally, I
Obviously.
see that I could see them taking the Sun Belt this year, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that you're returning 10 starters on offense, 10 starters on defense. The last team I can remember, and I know there are other teams, but who returned that many starters were when Tebow was on the Florida Gators, and they brought back the whole team basically from that championship. And talking about capitalizing on momentum, this was a team that down the stretch just ran the rock. And I mean, they dominated on the ground. And with a stable of basically 3 different backs, I mean, mostly you're looking at Cox and Upshaw, but Ricky Ferguson too came in a lot of times and just, big play here, big play there. And they really dominated the tempo of games. And in conference games, that's how you have to play. I mean, and the quarterback situation is not as great as the backfield right now. So they need to lean on that and just reduce the turnovers. And when you're talking about returning 10 starters on defense, what we saw at the beginning of last year will be drastically different from how this season opens. And you're talking if they open, they play Howard the first week. I'm not too worried about that game. But if something happens and they take a game in Death Valley versus Clemson, who knows? I mean, the sky's the limit for this team because the toughest teams in the Sun Belt, they're going to get home games against. We play Georgia Southern at home. We play UL Lafayette at home, and they finished 1-2 in the conference last year. I think if they can keep the run game going the way that they finished last year, it's going to be tough to beat them this year. Maybe just a loss to Clemson or maybe a tough loss to a conference opponent down the stretch. But
I love high expectations. I like that.
Yeah, I think from a fan perspective, taking away the numbers, the people, that kind of thing, just being a fan and looking at these games, and the atmosphere at the games at the end of last season was incredible. I mean, just being with people who generally wanted to be at the game, who weren't like, well, I'm here for, let's say, 2 quarters,
First half,
maybe go to the third, see how we're doing, then I'm going to go home and get a beer. It was so much more fun to be in
Get
stands
one spoofier than this.
that were packed through nearly the end of the game or through a lot of the game because it gives a better atmosphere. The players feel better, the coaches feel better. Everyone is in just a better mood. Even if we end up losing the game when it's close or when the games are getting there, it's just more fun. It's better to be a fan at that time.
And it keeps up the morale for the next game
Oh,
too.
yeah.
If you in the game with no one in the stands, you sort of have that image, and when you're in practice and when you come back for the next game, like even if you see the stands full, you're just gonna be like, that's not gonna last. Like our school doesn't support us, so having the people there, it's sort of like a symbiotic. Really, football team does well, we stay. If we stay, they do well. It's so. But yeah, and I think you were talking about the offense, but with the defense, like with Law coming back and everyone like that, just holding down that defense. If we stop, because that was one of our biggest problems at the start of the season was the numbers, and we cut down the yards per game allowed by almost half. It was crazy come the second part of the season. So with that returning defense, I think that's going to be the solid anchor to our team.
It's a blitz happy group. The thing I think I'm most excited about is the way they are built to set it up, and that to me is a blue collar approach. These games are going to be won and lost in the trenches. Phil Steele wrote on his column a couple weeks ago that Appalachian returns 35 combined starts on the offensive line. That's the tops in the Sun Belt, one of the top 50 marks in the country. But it's going to be built on the backs of those guys who have the experience, have the camaraderie, that you're going to get the ground game going. You're going to give Taylor Lamb more time to find all of these weapons at wide receiver that are almost 3 deep at every position across all 5 receiver slots. You throw that over to the defensive side, and you got a guy like Ronald Blair coming in for a redshirt senior year. You're going to blitz Law some. You're going to blitz Middleton some. This is not a showboat fancy style on both sides of the ball. This is a grinded out, physical, go-get-'em, blue-collar style of football. I think that translates more to fans. I think you all will be so much more excited to stay to watch something like that than you would a finesse game. I just don't think that's the way that Appalachian plays their best.
Oh yeah, no, I mean if you look at any crowd reaction, you're gonna get the biggest like ooh from a giant hit sacking the quarterback. Like if someone intercepts the ball, we're like, oh yeah, we have the ball back. But if you hear that helmet to chest, like if you hear that hit, it gets the crowd going. It's great. And that's all defense,
Yep, and it's interesting because, App, if you look at the scores from last season, they were hanging 30, 40 points in the majority of their games, especially down the stretch. And you're talking about doing that while running the ball. 40 points is not typical for a team that runs the ball as well as App does. And so when you talk about bringing back an entire defense, if you can get to the opponent where they're scoring, 20, 28 points a game, but you're playing at that same pace, I don't know. I don't see who can hang with us, honestly. I mean, I really don't. Georgia Southern was the best team in the conference last year, and they lost a lot of players, I don't know. I just don't see it.
Well, and a lot of this on the defensive side is going to be based on just pure size. I mean, when you've got how many seniors coming back who have all summer, they've bulked up more, they've grown, they're just bigger guys compared to a whole bunch of freshmen, sophomores, things of that nature. I mean, that's intimidating.
Yep.
If you're on the other team and you're a quarterback or whatever, looking at these guys, you're going, dang, like he's gonna crush me.
And they've played together. It's chemistry too. It's chemistry.
Yeah.
You never get that in college because guys are constantly in and out, in and out, in and out.
Largely a sophomore redshirt junior team.
Yep.
And with that comes the chemistry. What is the Thursday night game, the 2 Thursday night games, is that what you all as students are looking for?
I mean, I know me and my friends, especially a lot of us, seniors, don't have a lot of Friday classes. So stuff like that on a Thursday night is awesome. It's an excuse to go out, to have some fun with our friends, but still know that, like, we're not going to be at the bars all night or something crazy. It's fun to go out and just hang out with people and watch good football. And I think that's something that we've missed with now having Thursday night games or, only having Saturday games is that, we're waiting all week for Saturday and all week again for Saturday. It's going to be fun to have something midweek to kind of look forward to and to get excited about.
And I would say energy under the lights. I mean, something about football under the lights. It's what makes high school football so great. Friday night lights, you know what I'm saying? And so to get that experience at the college level where typically, most of App's games are starting at noon, things like that, to have that night experience, I think it's going to draw a pretty good crowd as well. People who may not always go to the Saturday games just because it's like, hey, how many opportunities are we going to get to do this?
Yeah, and I think the first game that I ever went to when I came up here initially, it was a nighttime game, and it was probably one of the best experiences of my life, in all honesty. Just there's something about it, just with the lights on you, with them there, because when you see it in the day, I think it has something to do with the not natural light. It gives that effect that just like it's almost like putting on a show, like a concert. Like the lights are there, they're on you, and it's just. I think that'll be good. People will get hyped up for it.
The field glows. I mean, you can see it from hundreds of miles away, depending on where you're looking from. So it's definitely something that
I like the fact that here we spend all this time and research and effort and money trying to think about what gets people excited to come to games, and all we had to do is flip on the lights hole.
Exactly. Just turn
So
them
maybe
on.
we'll just turn on the lights for the noon games too, and we'll do it like that. Real quick, we don't have a lot of time before the bar closes here. What's the most anticipated home game you're waiting for?
Georgia Southern.
Yeah,
Has to be.
definitely Georgia Southern.
Georgia Southern, all the way
Whole
around.
conference could rest on that game right there.
And the game after Thanksgiving, I think that's one of the things that the athletic department wants to impress upon everybody is that Thanksgiving weekend is in play. Playing Lafayette here, that is going to decide the conference championship prior to the end of the regular season against South Alabama. It's getting people to understand that Thursday or that Thanksgiving Saturday used to be solely dependent on playoff type stuff. Now that's an in-play weekend. Auburn and Alabama can do it. Appalachian and Lafayette can do it.
Oh, definitely.
Well, that will do it for the Sports Bar. It's last call time. Hopefully you come back once again next week for more great sports talk and great sweet tea as well. I'm David Jackson.